Want to know what the movers and shakers of New Hampshire's performing arts are thinking? Welcome to New Hampshire Unscripted with your host, Ray Dudley.
No, that makes it feel impersonal. I'd rather talk and look at you.
Yeah, thanks. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Mo.
Hi, Ray.
Hi. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So, we've known each other for a while.
You know, I was thinking about it this morning as I was getting ready to come up here. I'm going, how far back is it that I met Ray? And I could not recall the first time we met. I started thinking back, was it like with Sandcastle?
That's what I'm thinking.
It was Sandcastle, wasn't it?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But I don't remember what show.
Well, the only one I did with Sandcastle was JC Superstar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's the only one?
That's the only one.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Excuse me.
So Superstar was 80s?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in the 80s.
Jeez, man, the time flies.
Yeah. Yeah, with Siegel and... Yeah, that was a while back. I've had the fortunate ability to perform JC Superstar more than once, but that was the first time I did it.
What else did you do?
I also did it at the Palace Theater.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Not long after that, played the same role in both shows, which was one of the priests. Because as you can tell by listening to my voice, I'm not a soprano.
What? So who put on the second production?
It was a Palace.
The Palace itself?
Yeah, the Palace itself, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, back when they still did the role.
Yeah.
I think it was Bob Shaw. Bob Shea.
Bob
Shea.
Shea.
Yeah. I'm not sure what he's up to now, but I haven't seen him in a long time.
I think he's a Gunkwit or somewhere out there.
Yeah.
I think.
Possibly.
So let's go way back. Let's get in the Wayback Machine.
All righty.
Tell me about how you got the hook for doing theater.
Okay.
Junior high, high school?
Oh, yeah. Actually, not junior high school, but a little bit before that was in my church when I was practicing. We had a youth group that did a little variety show. And I used to like to sing, so I got suckered into doing that with a couple of my friends and had a good time with that. Got into high school, got into one production with the drama club at Central High, and then had to drop out of it because of some other considerations that were going on at home, and just didn't have the time for after-school activities. So I fell away from it until 1988.
She's checking her notes.
I know, I have notes. You get old and you forget dates. I can remember 300 pages of dialogue, but I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday.
Terrible?
Yeah. But so I got married, and a couple of years after I got married, I married a widower who had 5 children, and they were all in their teens when we got married. So after I'd been married 3 or 4 years, half of them had already moved out and started lives of their own. And so my free time opened up a little bit, and I saw an audition notice in the Suncook Valley Sun, which was a little local paper up in the Pittsfield area, that they were having auditions for Camelot. And I went, you know what? That would be a fun hobby, because at the time I didn't have an out-of-the-house hobby. And so I went, totally expecting that I'm not going to get cast. This is a theater. I mean, they're going to have experienced, talented, professional people, and I'm not going to get in, but I'll go and see what it's like anyway. And I got cast in the chorus, and that was it.
Yeah.
From that show on, I can count on one hand how many times I've gone more than a month that I was not involved in a show in some capacity.
Seriously?
Seriously. I have never taken I've never taken more than a month break between shows. It's just gone back to back to back.
That is remarkable.
Yep.
Well, what year was that?
It was 88.
88.
Yeah, so it's too many years to count.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, and it would be in different capacities. Started with, the chorus and the musicals, and then moved on to getting some speaking parts in musicals, and then acting in plays. And then moving on to directing and producing, and now you name it. I don't think there's a job in theater I haven't done. The only one that I'm not comfortable with is the actual running of lights. Not the running of cues, but the actual wiring and the electronics of it. But I can do a light plot and do, all of that and run them, but I've done plenty of that. But that's it, just the actual physical electronics of running the wires and hanging the lights and that.
So you've worked with a lot of groups then?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
A lot of groups.
A lot of groups, yep. In the state, Winnipesaukee Players, Wolfboro, New Thalian when they existed, I did one show with them, Nashua Theatre Guild, Bedford Off-Broadway, Pittsfield Players, Sandcastle when they existed. A little bit of professional, not a lot, because it's tough when you're working full-time and raising kids.
Yeah.
New Hampshire is a great place for community theater because you can move around in it inside of the restraints of other life responsibilities. I can't see making a living at it because I can't pay my mortgage on what I can make on theater in New Hampshire. But I did a little bit of professional work, worked with the Palace, worked with Newburyport Firehouse, did a gig once with the Great Waters Music Festival up in Wolfboro. I don't know if they even perform anymore.
Yeah, I never heard of it.
That was fun. I got to work with Sandy Duncan. Oh my God, there's a name from the past.
Wow, Sandy Duncan.
Yeah, and Jeffrey, the fellow who was in Beetlejuice, Jeffrey, I can't think of his name. Anyways, a little bit of name dropping there, but
Nice.
worked with them. But most of my activity has been in community theater. It's an avocation, not a vocation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you always lived in the same place?
I've lived in Epsom, while I was living in Epsom, when I went for my first audition with Camelot. Prior to that, I lived in Manchester, raised my children in Manchester, and then bought some property in Epsom, because that was how far outside of the city I had to go to find something I could afford.
Yeah.
But so all my kids are now still living in Manchester, but so it's 25 minutes. It's no
Yeah.
big deal.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you must enjoy theater.
Oh,
Right.
I can't imagine not.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are days where you're on a 3-night-a-week schedule and you're working overtime at work, and then you get to Hell Week and you go, and I'm doing this because why?
Yeah, I know.
Because, you get down to that point and it's demanding and it's exhausting. But as soon as it's all done, you go, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
You just move on to the next one.
Gosh. So what are you deriving from theater? What's it giving to you?
It's a family, for one thing. There's a tremendous amount of camaraderie. It's a small group inside of a huge number of people in a state or in the country. It's just, and it's very specific, and they're very unique, but everyone's there for the same reason. It's an artistic expression. I used to have difficulty with my husband when I was doing shows and we would have cast parties, because my husband comes from a history where arts were not well exposed. And so I kid around that he's like the only person I know on the planet that's never seen The Wizard of Oz.
Is that true?
That's very true.
Never.
Never
You've
seen it. Never seen it. He's 20 years my senior, so he's a generation past, and his exposure to culture and things of that nature was so limited that when I came along and I got involved in it, it was foreign to him. So cast parties would come along, and he would be absolutely horrified at the thought of going to a cast party with me because he didn't know what to talk to people about. He says, I don't know anything about theater, and they're all smarter than me. And I'm going, no. I go, that's the one thing that's wonderful about theater is I know lawyers who do theater. I know furniture makers who do theater. I know bookkeepers.
Yeah.
I know cashiers at the grocery store. I mean, all walks of life get involved in theater. So it's a wonderful common goal that brings all kinds of people together. There's no strata that determines whether or not you can do it or not. As long as you can remember dialogue and remember your blocking and stay in the light.
Yeah, exactly right. Stay in the light.
Stay in the light, yeah.
Well, you don't feel an obligation to get him to watch The Wizard of Oz?
Oh, I've tried. I have tried. Isn't that comical? He's going to kill me that I brought that up. You may want to edit that out.
No, stays in. That's funny.
Yeah, well, he was raised in an orphanage, and there just wasn't a lot of access to cultural things.
He's
theater.
not in the orphanage now.
I know, but he grew up.
Have you not heard of date night? Pizza and a movie.
I know. His taste is outside the realm of fantasy. So he doesn't care for that. He doesn't care for anything that's animated, even though there's a lot of great things. I mean, you look at some of the Disney stuff, and it is written for the adults for sure.
Yeah, I know.
But it's just not his taste. He has had a lot more exposure to the cultural side of life since I got into theater. So he's come to a lot of plays. He comes to everything that I'm involved in. So his level of exposure has increased tremendously, but I still can't quite get him past that animation is for kids attitude. So, sooner or later, but there's more than enough other things out there. You'll never see it all. So,
yeah. How many kids do you have?
We have 5 boys.
Any of them do theater?
Actually, no. And none of them were in a band when they were growing
you're
up.
letting me down here. Where's your lineage?
I know. Well, here's the scoop. When I got married, I married a widower who had 5 children of his own. My oldest son is only 4 years younger than me. My youngest son is 10 years younger than me.
Oh, my God.
So they were all in their teens and already very established personalities when I came into the picture. And I didn't start doing theater until after they had all moved out of the house. So by then your influence is limited. They all come, and they all love to see me and the things that I'm involved in, but none of them has become interested in being involved in it. Skip a generation and go to my grandkids. I have a couple of granddaughters who are very interested. I have 2 of them that get involved in their shows all the time at school.
Yeah.
So that's nice. So I enjoy getting to go and see them.
Yeah. It's nice that they get it in early.
Yep.
Get that hook in them early, I mean.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's just like, sports and athletics for the kids in my grandkids' ages now. I mean, that's just something that's a given. They all do it. When I was growing up, if you weren't a boy, you didn't do sports. It was simple as that. It just wasn't available to you, so. Yeah.
So, let's talk about shows.
Okay.
What were some of your favorite shows that you have done in the past?
Define done. Acted in? We'll start with acted in.
Okay,
Because there are so many aspects. Oh, gosh. I really, really enjoyed Night Mother. I got to play the daughter in Night Mother with Mary Morris, who's now in Florida. I did that about 10 years. No, gosh, it's more than that now. Probably about 15 years ago. That was just a 2-person play with a very, very dark subject matter. Do you know the show?
No.
Night Mother is the story of a woman who is anywhere between, say, 35 and 45, who lives with her mom. And the show centers around a single evening where she is trying to spend her last evening with her mom and prepare her mom for the fact that she is about to commit suicide. That her life she doesn't see the point of going on. That it hasn't been bad, but it's not good. There's no relationship. And so she spends this entire evening trying to have some quality time with her mother, but prepare her for the fact that she is dead serious, that she is going to commit suicide before the night is over. And she does. So it's a tremendous tour de force for both the daughter and the character of the
comedy.
mom. Yeah, it's very heavy. I had friends who wouldn't come because they couldn't deal with the subject matter. But I really, really enjoyed that. Then there have been musicals. My favorite of all time musical character has been Nancy and Oliver. I've been able to play her twice. Once was at Newburyport Professional, and once was up at Village Players in Wolfboro. And she's just fun. She is just so much fun. In fact, I've played her 3 times. And the interesting thing with her is every time you do a show like that, every director has a different take on things. So I got to die in 3 different ways.
Oh. Okay.
Well, so it's interesting, how directors will take different takes on things.
Yeah.
Somebody wants it to be right out there on stage. Somebody says, oh, no, it should be behind a screen because kids are going to come. Somebody says, I want to see you get beaten to death. Somebody says, I want you to hang. I want you to drown. I go, okay, whatever. So she was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed her.
So who did you do Night Mother with?
Night Mother was at the Bedford Town Hall, and I want to say it was actually with Nashua Theater Guild, who, for whatever reason, was actually performing at the Bedford Town Hall. I imagine it was because they couldn't get access to the performance spaces they
Yeah.
used at the time down in Nashua. But I'm pretty sure they were the company that actually produced it. Yeah. That's challenging when you're one of two people and you never leave stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's demanding.
It is.
Yeah.
Very demanding,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because there's not an awful lot that anybody can do to help you if you find yourself in trouble. I mean, if the other actor is savvy and knows where you are and can maybe throw you a lifeline, that helps. But
That would happen, that you could lose your place?
Oh my gosh.
What?
I was doing, I was running the lights and sound in the booth for Witness for the Prosecution in Pittsfield. Oh, that's 30 years ago. And in that play, it takes place in two locations. It starts in a barrister's office, it goes to a courtroom, and then it goes back to the barrister's office. And I was, way back then, when you had the script in front of you, when you were moving toggles and everything, setting up light cues and sound cues so you could switch to the next one as it was coming up. I was on the script, and they started Act 1, and Act 1 and Act 3 started very, very similarly, same location, same actors. And within 5 minutes of Act 1, one of the actors skipped to part of the dialogue in Act 3. And you're in the light booth and you're flipping pages going, where the heck are they? And oh my gosh, and how are they going to get back? And it was just two people on stage, and there was nothing anybody could do except pray that they would figure out what they had done and get back. Because obviously, the first 5 minutes of any play, there's a lot of information that usually
Sure.
gets exposed that you need to
Right.
understand the rest of the story. So they managed to get back, but that's terrifying when you're watching it and you can't help.
That's the stuff nightmares are made of.
Yeah, you can't, actor's nightmare.
Yes.
Yeah, because you knew when they realized it. The eyes got big, and the dialogue got a little louder and a little slower as they tried to figure out how to get back.
Yeah, that's funny and scary at the same time.
Oh, it is. Well, that's one of the things that's so exciting about live theater.
Yeah.
Is you have an opportunity to get it right every night, but so much can go wrong.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I am working with someone right now in a production who's directing a play for the first time. He's directed film before, and it's been a learning curve for him because in film, you can do the same scene 75 times and just pick the one that's good, and then the actors can forget it. It's done. It's
Right,
in the can.
right.
In theater, it's different. I mean, you have to practice and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. It's like muscle memory. And one of the things I was saying to this director is you have to always remember, in film, you can move the camera. In theater, you have to move the actors. Okay, so don't just sit and watch it. They have to move around, and you have to build the pictures up there because you can't move the camera around to make it
That's
interesting.
right. That's exactly right.
So it's been very interesting working with him. It's been a learning curve, and it's been a lot of fun.
I want to touch base on it. Hang on a second.
Sure.
I have to blow my nose. Every time I come in this booth, I end up having, my nose runs. I don't know if I'm allergic to something. Excuse me.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of dust in these acoustic walls.
Every time I come in, every time. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Thank God I can edit. All right, so back to that topic, because it's funny, I was listening to like an audiobook by not a screenwriter, but someone who has to do with film. And he was making that point about how film is so different than the theater, because he said you need to picture like this red carpet, and on theater it goes left to right, and on film it's front to back. It's directional
Yes.
this way.
Yeah.
The carpet would go away from you in film, but on the stage it's wide.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's also tall.
yeah, boy, that's a truth.
Right. So when you're directing, you have to allow for the fact that you don't want straight lines of people, but you also want levels in height as well to make things interesting. It just becomes
there's no
very
overhead shots.
it's very there's no overheads. There's no POVs from up in the sky.
Yeah, that's right.
One.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that would be an interesting tutorial, wouldn't it?
The other thing that's quite different with film is that film is very small. A raised eyebrow can be seen in film.
Right. Good point.
A whisper can be heard in film. And in stage, you have to always remind yourself, as the director and the people on stage, that if you're not mic'd, the back row needs to be able to hear you just as well as the front row. But at the same token, you don't want to break the eardrums of the people in the front row.
Yeah.
And if you raise an eyebrow, you have to add some other physicality to that so that the people in the back row pick it up.
Right.
An eyebrow on film is all you need, but on stage you need shoulders, or you need a twist of the head, or something else as well to telegraph that out.
Yeah, and that whisper is actually different.
Yes.
Stage whisper, it has to seem like a whisper, but that person, you're right, in the back row
still has to hear it.
That's right.
Yep.
It's exactly right. So it has to seem like this whisper.
Right.
But kind of not be a whisper.
Yep.
So, do you know Betty Thompson? Did you know her?
Yes.
Oh, man, that's tragic. That's a shame. This is the first podcast since then, so I haven't really had a chance to talk to anybody about it, but...
Yeah. I sadly did not get much work with Betty. Seen tons of the things that she was involved with, know tons of people that worked more intimately with her. I did know her, but not well. But you're right. Tremendous loss to the theater community.
Crazy energy. She had crazy energy.
Yep.
It was amazing to me how much energy that woman had.
And not only the energy that comes from a love of the craft.
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can dig down deep in your boots and find that energy for something that you're passionate about. And she was passionate.
She was the epitome of passion.
Yeah.
She really was. It was what drove her. Mm-hmm. And it was fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
God bless her. Well, we'll miss her.
Yes, yeah. We have lost a good one.
So, do you prefer... Now, you've done musicals. You've done, obviously, drama and comedy. Do you have a preference?
No.
You don't? You
no.
just want to do theater?
Yeah, it's theater. If it's on the stage, I like it. I have been in many musicals. I've never had the opportunity to direct one.
Seriously?
Yeah, which would be challenging only because when you direct a play, a drama, comedy, anything that does not involve music and it's just tech, you have complete control. You don't need the assistance of other people to craft that vision. Musicals need music directors and choreographers, which I just have not had that opportunity. But if it came along, if I could be provided, great musical directors and a choreographer, I'd be all over it.
You have a musical you'd like to do, if it ever came up?
Oh, well, I hate to say it, I'd love to do JC Superstar again. Oh. But from the director's side rather than from being on the stage. I would love to do that again. I have a couple of Sondheims. And, my favorite would be Sunday in the Park with George. Mm-hmm. I would do that in a heartbeat. The only challenge to that, really, is the scrim of the painting that's required in that play, which is Sunday in the Rue.
Sunday in the Park, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a famous painting by Surratt. It hangs in the Chicago Museum of Art, and the original is the size of a building. It's something like 20 feet tall by 30 feet wide or something of that nature. And actually the whole play is about him painting that painting and his discovery of or creation of pointillette or pointelle painting, which is painting colored dots, so that if you put a red and a blue and a yellow dot together and then you stand back, the eye perceives the green or the red or the purple or the orange as opposed...
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So when you walk up to the painting, it's a lot of little dots, but when you stand back, you see the image. He was the forerunner of that type of artistry and painting, and it's his life story. The original on Broadway, it was Mandy Patinkin and Bernadette Peters.
That's right. That's right.
Spectacular play. Music is amazing. I personally love Sondheim. I know a lot of people who can take it or leave it. I find Sondheim not only enjoyable to watch and to listen to, but I find it so much fun and challenging to perform, because one of the quirks of Sondheim is that whatever the vocalists are singing, specifically the leads, the melody, is never in the accompaniment.
What?
It's not played by the orchestra does not play what the person sings. They play the accompanying, they play all of the other instruments and all of the other notes that go into the chords that make the entire arrangement, but almost never is the melody line played by the violin or the melody line played by the cello or something.
I didn't know that either.
So the singer has got to know it cold.
It's a good thing I got out of bed.
Because and I'm not saying that's an absolute, but it's quite common in Sondheim's music that you just have to know it cold. You have to have an ear for it, and you have to know it cold, because you can't find it in the music, so you can't follow. You can't say.
Is that a two-person play?
Oh no, there's a lot of other people in it.
All right.
There's a lot of other people in it. Actually, Brent Spiner, who was Data in Star Trek, played in the Broadway performance of that. He was in it as well.
Man.
So that would be. I would do that in a heartbeat. If there was
did you see it on Broadway?
I wish I had. No, I've seen a filmed copy of it.
Got you.
Yeah, it's just great. So I would love to.
If only you knew someone who had a group.
Yeah, I know.
Only you knew. Oh, wait.
Who also had a theater that was big enough for that particular show.
Is it a big show?
It's a big show because of that scrim. Yeah, it's a big show.
So you couldn't be doing it at the Hatbox.
No, that would be very tough to do at the Hatbox. Audi could do it. Concord could do it. With that stage, they could do it. You just have to rent the scrim. But that would.
But couldn't you do it with a projection? You don't think you could do it with a projection?
Well, yeah. Even if you did, it would be really difficult to not show the scale of it.
Oh.
Yeah. So even if you had, a shark tooth scrim and just projected, I think it would lose something in a venue the size of Hatbox.
That's too bad.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's impossible.
Yeah.
It would be hard. I'm bringing Lend Me a Tenor in there. That's going to be a big play for that little space.
Yeah, we're going to get around to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. That's going to be a challenge.
Yeah. So, you've acted and you direct. When did you start directing? When did you decide, you know what, I don't mind being on stage, but I kind of want to try my hand in.
After about 10 years with the Pittsfield Players, I got on the board a year after that first audition. So I auditioned in 88, and by 89 I was on the board of directors.
You were?
Oh, yeah. And I was there for 18 years, served as the treasurer for 15-plus years that I was there. I was there about 10 years on the board, picking plays, building sets, and everything that goes along. And I decided that I wanted to direct a show. I wanted to take a stab at it. So I had just before then seen a show called Social Security, which is a cute little farce. It's like a 5-person cast. I thought it would be a very fun show, a single set, so not too complicated with a lot of set changes or anything.
Thank God.
For first time in, yeah. Yeah, so I proposed it to the board, and it got picked up. And they said, okay, you can have it in this time slot. Within a week of our announcing our season, another theater company announced that they were doing the same show, like 3 or 4 weeks before us. Now, I can't fault them that they probably had picked it a year and a half before, but, we sat down and we said, look, we're fairly close proximity with this other company, and we share an audience, we overlap. We probably may want to reconsider what show we do. Would you be okay if we did something other than Social Security? Because I had brought it to the board. And I said, no, I've already allotted my time on my personal calendar. If you want to pick something else, I'd be happy to stay in the position and do that. And they said, well, it just happens to be it's our 30th anniversary. Why don't we redo the first show Pittsfield ever did? And I went, okay, fine, what's that? You can't take it with you, which is like 14 people and fireworks and dancing and just mayhem. It's a crazy show.
Yeah.
I said, okay. And they said, yeah, okay, well, that's what we'll do. And I got the script, took it home, and almost had a heart attack when I read how many people were in it. I literally, being my very first directorial ever, and not under the tutelage of anybody else. I sat down with a piece of paper and drew out the stage, and then I went in my piggy bank and dug out a whole bunch of quarters and put little pieces of tape on them and wrote the names of all the characters on them, and then sat down and started blocking the play at home before we ever got in rehearsal, moving people around, because there are a couple of scenes where there's one character who has like 3 lines, and then he goes off in the corner. He never leaves stage, but he goes off in the corner and he's muddling around with something, and then like a page and a half later he just throws a line out, and I'm reading along and I got to that line and I went, well, where the hell is he? I had to look at my quarters and go, oh yeah, he is still on stage. that was I still use that sometimes.
That method?
Yeah, occasionally. If I've got a really, really large cast and I know that there are going to be times where all of them are on stage at the same time. I tend to be a director that likes to get about 80% of my blocking in my script before we ever have a read-through. To me, that is mostly just traffic management. It's entrances, exits, make sure people are not standing in front of other people, and you have a good idea of how the play is going to move. Yeah. The rest, the 20% that comes after that, you're going to change. You get into rehearsal, and something you thought in your mind was going to work doesn't work. You end up deciding that somebody should enter later because they end up on stage for an inordinate amount of time with nothing to do, and you know. The other 20% comes during rehearsal, but I like to have as much of it done as possible before I ever set foot through the door. Then we spend the first 2 or 3 or 4 rehearsals just going through traffic management and entrances and exits and all of that blocking. And then I have the rest of my run to develop it, to let the actors find their characters and have them, say, I know we're doing this way, but could I try that? And it gives us enough time to play around with it so that towards the end of the rehearsal process, we've got it where we want it, and I still have a couple of weeks for memorization to run it and run it and run it and run it so that the actors don't have to think too hard while they're on stage. I also like to get in rehearsal props as early as I possibly can. I don't care if you're holding a pair of glasses in your hand and pretending it's a coffee cup, so that when I switch it out and I hand you a coffee cup, you're already accustomed to having something in your hand. Nice. Same thing with, like, I've done shows where somebody had to walk in with suitcases. They're running away from home and they've got their suitcases loaded. Fill the suitcase. Make it heavy, so that the actor doesn't have to pretend it's heavy. It's just one more thing the poor actor has to think about, and they have more than enough with dialogue and blocking and intonation and attitude and listening when they're not talking and everything else that actors have to think about while they're on stage. I don't want to give them one more thing that they have to pretend and think about, because if they forget, it's like, oh, look at that suitcase is empty, I can tell. Yeah.
That kind of stuff makes me crazy.
It does.
I think it's my background as an actor, but when I sit and I'm watching, and I know there's nothing in the cup they're drinking from as they pretend to be drinking, I'm thinking, how hard would it be? Just put a little bit of water in that cup.
Yeah.
Just do that, or they
I will say, though, that can come back and bite you. I witness for the prosecution. I had one small scene in it where I was the secretary that had to come in and serve tea to the barrister and one of the lawyers. And so that was how I was able to get out of the lighting booth. We didn't have anybody who wanted these 3 lines. I would run down, do the scene, come back up. So they asked the actors, well, what do you want for tea? Do you want tea that's just room temperature? Do you want hot tea? I mean, I don't know how we're going to make hot tea, or do you want something, whatever. And they both agreed that they wanted ginger ale, which would have a color that's reminiscent of tea. So our stagehands would open up a bottle of ginger ale every night, leave it sit overnight so it would go flat, so that I could pour it on stage, until the one night that they forgot. And they poured regular old ginger ale in the teapot, and I poured it into a cup, and it overflowed and fizzed all over the place. I went, okay.
Live theater. That's why we like live theater. All that stuff happens.
Oh, I could tell you a multitude of horror stories, things that have happened on
What's
stage.
The worst thing that's ever happened?
The number one worst would probably be a set wall going over.
You're saying it was not secured properly?
It was not secured properly, and it just went over. But it was not, actually, except for the break in the continuity of the play, literally just lifted it up and put it back in place. And a couple of stagehands held it. It was towards the end of the show, and a couple of stagehands held it. The other two would be, we did a show, I'll Be Back Before Midnight, where there was a fellow who was trying to convince his wife that she was going insane. But he was pretending that she was getting better. She had been to a solarium and she was back home, and so he's trying to be comforting to her. She comes downstairs and he's trying to be friendly and slightly frisky, and so there's a little sofa in the middle of the room, and it's right in front of a flat where there are some French doors. That's the set. And every night he was supposed to pick her up and give her a hug and do a 360 and then set her down on the sofa and then sit down next to her and smooch a little. Well, it would go from a little spin to a set her down, from a little spin to a toss her down, to a little spin to an almost fall on top of her down. It just got bigger and bigger. And one night, they hit it a little too hard. The sofa went over and snapped the back legs of the sofa.
Oh, my God.
So now I can't, how do you set the sofa back up? I mean, you can't pick it up. Fortunately, there was a character in the play who was the custodian of the property, sort of a Mr. Green Jeans kind of character, and we had a couple of cans of paint out in the back of the theater, and he walked in and he just ad-libbed, "Wow, you two are getting a little frisky, huh? Nice to have you back." And he shoved a can under one leg and shoved a can under the other corner, and they went on with the play with a cup. Yeah. Fast thinking. Boy, you have to be adaptive in theater.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
The worst thing that ever happened to me was I was working backstage on the Cemetery Club, and one of the actresses, who was one of the three lead females, the wives, the widows, took ill during Act 1 to the point where she had to be taken to the hospital. And during intermission, the director came up to me backstage and says, "You've been at all the rehearsals, you know all the blocking, here's a script, you go on." I went, what?
That's frightening.
Yeah. They made an announcement to the audience that if there was anyone who felt cheated and they wanted their money back, we would honor them at another performance or whatever. Not one person left. Everybody stayed for Act 2. They were totally understanding that you can't control
audiences
illness.
are pretty forgiving.
Yeah. You can't control somebody getting hurt or somebody getting sick. But it was very amusing because the woman who played the role that got ill is about maybe 10 inches taller than me, and at the time probably about 30 or 40 pounds heavier than me. And one of her costumes was a fur coat and a fur cap. She goes, in the very last scene, she goes to the cemetery and talks to her dead husband and says, "I think it's time for me to move on. I'm going to stop coming every single day. Maybe I'll come once or twice a year, but it's time for me to move on." But you took that fur coat that fit her and that hat that fit her, and you put it on me, and it was dragging on the floor. And
now we have a comedy.
I know. People said it looked like I was being eaten by a bear. But the show must go on, so we did.
I'm surprised that doesn't happen more often.
Especially in community theater.
There's no understudies.
There are no understudies.
I'm really surprised that there aren't more people who end up being sick or hurt or something. Mm-hmm. You never hear of it.
I know. It's very rare.
It's
very, very rare.
I mean, it's remarkably rare.
Yeah.
Considering how many plays are done?
Yeah.
And now we've got 100, 200 groups.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, there's an explosion right now.
Yeah.
It's at one of the peaks. It seems to go in peaks and valleys and peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
Things get going very well. Like a venue like the Hatbox comes up, and it's an opportunity for a lot of people to ply their craft and try the craft. And then a lot of companies pop up, and then 10 years will go by, and half of them will fall by the wayside.
Absolutely.
It happens. I mean, there are only so many actors. There are only so many directors, and then the talent gets spread very, very thin, and then you get to a point where companies are having auditions and they can't cast.
Yeah.
When you get to the point where a show has to be canceled because you can't cast, you know that you've reached the maximum of the available talent. Yeah. And then things start to fall back a little.
And it's not cheap.
No. Oh, my goodness, no.
I mean, you start a new group, if you don't have an idea of what it costs to put on a show, you're in for a rude awakening. A very rude awakening, yeah. And the audiences, too, are absolutely convinced that we survive on ticket sales. And they don't understand why a ticket to a community theater has to be $20. Yeah.
Well, if you're performing in a theater that only has 60 seats and you're only doing 3 shows, you're not making a whole lot of money.
Right.
And when royalties can be $100 plus, and even though in community you're generally because you don't make any money, generally not paying
Right.
the performers, the director. Ordinarily, you'll pay musical because that's their livelihood. When you're doing a musical, if you're paying a violinist or somebody, generally you're not bringing in somebody who just does it as a hobby.
Yeah.
It's usually someone who that is their job. So it's understood that they expect to get paid, and it's usually a very small stipend. But other than that, you're not paying out anything. All the expenses in the set and the costumes, the advertising, rental of a venue, because very few theater companies own their own theaters. I
Yeah,
know
that's right.
one.
Yeah.
A community theater, I know one, Pittsfield. I was there when they bought the Scenic Theater. And that was, the blessing for them is they own their theater. The curse for them is they own their theater. So the beautiful part is, I mean, they can start rehearsals 3 months out, 4 months out. They can build their set 2 months out. They own the theater. They have absolute control of the calendar and the usage of the building. However, they are a community theater that has the liability of a building.
Oh.
So they have to repair the roof. They have to deal with the plumbing. They have to pay somebody to come shovel the front steps when it snows in the winter. If
You
the
have no
toilet...
parking out there either.
Oh, I know.
Dadgummit.
It's very, yeah.
Yeah, it's
There's
challenging, to say the least.
It's challenging, to say the least. So, I mean, from a theater company's point of view, to have access to the venue that far in advance and have absolute 100% ownership of it, that's fabulous. When I first started working there in the 80s, it was a movie theater, and the Dames owned it, and they loved us. They came to every show that we did. And but because it was a movie theater, the seats went all the way down to, maybe 6 or 8 feet from the wall where the movie screen was. So when we wanted to do a live performance, before we could build a set, we had to build a stage.
What?
We had to build a stage. There was a stage that had been built out of 2x6 construction and 1-inch plywood. Suckers were heavier than you can imagine, and all the legs had to be different lengths because the floor was raked, and you were building them over the tops of the seats. So you were crawling around
Wow.
in, like 2.5 feet of space. The stage was 6 inches over the top of the back of the seats. It was, and you could only get in there the Sunday before, because the Saturday before he was showing movies. So you'd come in on Sunday afternoon after his Sunday matinee movie, and you'd build a stage, and then if you were lucky, you might get started building the set, and then you owned it for the run of the show. And then when it was all done, you not only took your set down, but then you had to take the stage down.
That's
and,
crazy.
And on top of that, the storage space that they had, because they didn't own the building at the time, was 2 blocks down the road and 3 flights up.
Oh my God.
Yeah, do we suffer for our art?
Well, it's funny, when I was talking to Mike Mark yesterday, we were reminiscing about the Phoenix Hall.
Oh, yes. I understand someone is actually
That's what he was saying.
actively
Trying to renovate it.
and that would be
Yeah.
wonderful.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how they'll do it, because there's almost no access to it now. You've got the stairway in the back and an elevator in the front.
I know, yeah.
There's nothing else, and I don't like that elevator.
No, yeah, it's a little
Yeah,
rickety,
yeah,
Yeah.
to say the least.
to say the least.
So I guess I imagine they're going to have to fix all those egresses. But we were building sets up there and having to try to take them down that foolish back stairway.
Oh, yeah.
That thing's terrible.
Yeah.
And you have these massive sets. Yeah, so I have a lot of sympathy for the Pittsfield.
Yep.
Hey, so Northwood, that theater burned
Yeah.
down recently. Huh?
The building burnt down. Northwood Theater Workshop dissolved about 10 years ago. Wow, has it been that long already? Yeah, about 10 years ago. It was during one of the lulls in theater, and there were, well, actually the peaks in the number of companies, where there was so much competition for talent and skill, and everybody was trying to get actors, and it was getting harder and harder to cast shows. And the only performance space that they had was the Masons Hall in Northwood, which sadly burned down a month or 2 ago.
Yeah, recently.
Yeah, very recently. So when they got to the point where it was fiscally not feasible for them to continue to exist, they merged with Pittsfield.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so Pittsfield absorbed them, got some of their set materials and their costumes and things. And I want to say probably for a year or so, they maintained the name of Northwood under the auspices of Pittsfield, and then it was just a total merge, and Northwood ceased to exist. It's hard to draw an audience. If you have a theater on every single street corner, they're all sharing the same audience, and people work hard for their money. And like I said, $20 a ticket, you get a family of 4, and then maybe they want to go get ice cream afterwards or have dinner before. It can easily turn into a $150 night for community theater.
Right.
They're not going to do that every weekend.
Right.
So it gets hard to find the talent, and it also gets hard to find the audience.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, you have to. This is where figuring out a title comes in, because you may want to do a show, but if nobody's heard of it, you're going to have this problem of trying to get people in who've never heard of it. They're not going to gamble $150
on something that they may hate.
Right.
Exactly. You're right.
Yeah.
So you'll find a lot of theater companies. Now, the company that I have right now, Lend Me a Theater, we fall into that category. We have, we're only 5 years old. We're building up our bank account. We're very fortunate right now. We've been able to acquire a lot of assets over the last 5 years, and we're doing fine financially. But you will look at your calendar and say, okay, well, if we do this show, which we know everybody loves and will sell seats, and we do this show, which we know everybody loves and will sell seats, then for our third show, we can do something that's a little more avant-garde, that if we don't sell as many seats, it doesn't hurt us. But we get the opportunity at least once a year to do something that's a little less common, a little more challenging. So we did that with Marjorie Prime, which we did at the Hat Box, which is very open to bringing in the new and unusual, and that's it. That's a wonderful venue. That's a wonderful venue. So we brought Marjorie Prime there, which was a Tony Award winner. Pretty sure it was a Tony Award winner. And that's like a 5-person cast, but I would never have been able to bring that anywhere and sell it anywhere else because it was an unknown title. It was only like 5 years old when we did it. They've since made a movie out of it, which I think the play is better than the movie, but that's just
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
Yeah.
So you're always juggling with what is the quality of the performance you want to do versus how many butts can we get in the seats? Because you always have to pay the bills,
right?
And a lot of new companies don't have a following. Like Pittsfield's been around for I think they just had their 50th anniversary, 55, something like that. They've been around a long time. Concord Community Players has been around a long time. They have a following. Right. So I know that Concord has the opportunity of doing a lot of lesser known pieces, and they will be able to sell seats, and they will not lose money.
Yeah.
Every show is different, but they're not going to lose money when they take a chance. Yeah. Pittsfield's in the same position. They've done some interesting things. They did they did Grass Harp, which was a Truman Capote. I mean, nobody.
I never heard of it.
Yeah, the Grass Harp. It's a very interesting piece. Somebody brought it in, said, I'd like to direct this. We read it. We went, ooh, this is really good. Yeah, we'll do that. I directed over there several years ago a play called Tea and Sympathy. A lot of people have heard the expression Tea and Sympathy, but didn't know that it was a play.
I do.
Tea and Sympathy, and it's actually a New England-based story. It's based on it's not a true story, but it's based in an all-boys New England boarding school. And there is a young man who is artistic and wants to let his hair grow and likes poetry. And it takes place, I want to say, in like the 1940s. I think it's the 1940s. And so at that time, those kinds of idiosyncrasies in a teenage boy were looked at as being homosexual in nature. Mm-hmm. He runs into and he's a very young, very innocent soul. It's never quite divulged in the play. The audience makes their own decision whether they think he really is homosexual or not. But it runs around the reaction of his father when his father gets called to the school because the son was witnessed skinny dipping with an instructor at the school. But in the 30s, boys went skinny dipping. It was an all-boys school. I mean, you didn't have to worry about the girls. Kids went skinny dipping. Who the hell cared? But he was seen, and it was just him and an instructor. Now, nothing else was seen, just the fact that they were skinny dipping. But the rumor mill started, and then the father gets called in. And then there's an instructor who is the dean of the school who gets involved. And everybody has their own opinion of this boy. So it all centers around opinions and appearances. And it was very, very, it's a great piece of writing, but how do you sell that?
Yeah.
You know, unless you are in a position where you do 1 or 2 shows a year that you do The King and I, and you bring in 20 kids, and every kid has his mom and his dad and his grandparents, and you can sell out every night when you do a musical with kids. So you do them. Myself personally, I've been doing this long enough that it would have to be one of my own grandchildren to be in the show before I would spend the money on a ticket for The King and I again, because it's been done to death. But you get it, because in community theater, you need those staples. So The King and I, Sound of Music, a lot of the old Rodgers and Hammersteins, it doesn't take away from the quality of the piece. It's just that they get done so often and so much that it's refreshing to go see something new.
Yeah.
You know, being involved in theater, I'm thrilled with going to see something I've never heard of before or never seen before.
Yeah.
But not everybody is in a position where, like we said before, $150 for a night for a family of 4 to gamble on something that you might hate.
Right.
You end up going home and feeling you wasted your money.
And nowadays, where you can go, there's a movie theater right down the road, perhaps, that, you can easily go and see something that has already been reviewed.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, and everybody has such instant access to Netflix and HBO and so much of the streaming services that live theater has got to offer something to draw the person through. You have to get dressed, you have to get out of your jammies,
right,
and you have to get in the car, and you have to drive to the theater, and you have to park, and you may have to walk. So it's really a challenge to not only make selections that that people will enjoy, but then do it well so that after they've seen it, they don't walk out with a bitter taste in their mouth. The last thing any theater company can afford is to have a show that is abysmally produced and then half the audience walks out and goes, well, I'll never go to anything they do. This is horrible, And
if it's their first show ever seen,
you
can turn them off the theater forever.
Oh, yeah. You can turn them off and you can kill that theater company. Because it takes years to establish a reputation and a good one, and you can lose it in a day.
Yeah, that's right.
And then it takes you years to get it back again.
Right.
So,
one thing that always impressed me about Pittsfield, and I know we'll get here in a minute to talk about Lumiere Theater, but was that they weren't afraid to do big musicals.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've been in that theater. There's no wing space.
You have to build the wings into the set. Set designing there is fun.
I was amazed that they were not afraid to put these big honking musicals in there.
We did 1776 there.
I can't fathom that.
We had to, in fact, I designed the set for that. I won a New Hampshire Theater Award, Best Set Design for that set in that theater.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm sure it was well deserved.
It was a challenge.
We're talking, 26 men, 2 women, something like that?
Yeah, so you have to fit the set.
Yes.
And the back, like you said, the wing space. You have to build it into the set because there aren't any wings.
Right.
The stage goes from exterior wall to exterior wall. We ended up, the way the stage was set up was there were 2 small little sets of stairs that came down on either side against the exterior walls. We built one to have a little platform at the top, and that was the outside scene for anything that happened in Philadelphia. And then there was a pathway up to come around the back side of the stage and then enter through the grand doors into the main stage for the hall in Philadelphia. And then on the other side, there was also a little platform that would be everything that happened outside of Philadelphia. So Abigail would sing over there. And then we had to build in a small pit. So you don't do musicals there with a band of 12 or 14. You do 3 if you're lucky. For years and years and years, we had a musical director, Phil Breton, love you, Phil, from Laconia, who had an amazing electronic organ digital system. It was massive. It was the size of this desk here. And he would bring it into the theater for us, and he could program in the percussion and violin
That's
sounds and all the accompaniment music, and he could play just the main melody. And we did a lot of musicals with just one person, just with Phil.
Wow.
And they sounded great. I have only one time done a musical that used canned music, and it can be done.
Yeah.
But your actors have got to be perfect,
I know.
because a musician can vamp until you find your place. Yeah, but no, canned music, if you get lost or you sing the same verse twice, oh well. Just, oh well.
Scares the hell out of
The
me.
music just goes on.
Yeah.
So I won't do that. I would rather do a monstrous musical with a single piano and just do whatever you can to
Yeah.
make that sound good than work with canned music.
Yeah. Thank God. Yeah,
yeah.
I hate those tracks things, whatever they're called.
Yeah. They're okay for rehearsing, but for show it's difficult.
Ugh,
So.
please.
All the years that we were using Phil, we did a lot of great things because Phil didn't take up a lot of space, so we didn't have to build a huge pit or anything to accommodate 3 or 4 or 5 musicians. I don't know if Phil is still doing musical theater. I know he's still in Laconia, and I know he is teaching. But I know I don't think he's worked with Pittsfield for a number of years now. So. But yeah, I give big kudos to Pittsfield for, thinking outside the box and being willing. We did.
Telling you.
Now, at this point right now, after they bought the building, they were able to do some modifications to it. Prior to owning the building, the only way to get to the second floor, which was where the costumes were and the green room were and where you could do costume changes unless you were in the corner, was to go outside through the back door, run up the alley, across the front of the theater, up a side door, and up a flight of stairs.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so costume changes and then getting backstage
Oh my
was a
God.
marathon running up and down. Once they bought the theater, they were able to build a set of stairs backstage so you could get access to
Yeah.
the second floor from inside the building. Prior to that, we did, it was Pirates of Penzance, another show with big cast, another big musical. We had to park a Winnebago in the back alley, and that became the green room because there were just too many times where the girls didn't have time to get all the way upstairs and
That's
get in
pretty
changes.
brilliant, too.
Yeah, so we borrowed someone's Winnebago and parked it in the back alley, and there was your green room.
That's smart.
Yeah, and costume changes and
Of course, it doesn't take, for anyone who doesn't know, when you leave stage left, you're outside.
yeah, yeah.
You,
You're in the alley.
You go, yeah, that's exactly right. You literally walk out the door and you're outside.
Now, on top of that, running down the alley, I don't believe it's there anymore, but when I was working there, right across the alley was a pub. And if you had young girls in your show, and it was a nighttime performance, they didn't go down the alley and upstairs unescorted.
Wow.
You just, it was...
Well, the things you don't think about.
Yeah, so we always ended up having either an actor or somebody in the crew or somebody who was just an escort to get, any of the young kids down the alley, across the front, and upstairs to get into the green room and do their costume changes.
My God.
So it's, the community theater.
Yeah, right.
You make it work.
Yes.
The challenges you find, and you find ways to make it work.
Isn't that fascinating? So you were at Pittsfield for a long time.
Yeah, 18 years.
What made you decide? Are you the creator of Lend Me a Theater?
I'm one of, yes.
How did that process come about? What made you and someone else, whoever it was, decide we need to have our own group? Because obviously there's not enough of them.
Yeah, I know.
There's only a gajillion.
Well-
we need a gajillion in one.
Well, we were, this was 5 years ago. When I got off the board with Pittsfield, there were all kinds of factors that brought, I'm a firm believer that, every 10 years or so you need to reinvent yourself.
Mhm.
I extended that a long time with Pittsfield. I stayed there 18 years. And after I got off the board, I stayed a member of the company. In fact, I'm a lifetime member now. But I stayed involved, but in the background. I acted in a couple of shows and just backed off just a little bit because I wanted to go do other things with other companies. And when you're on the board of directors of a company, my feeling is that company is your number one priority.
Mhm.
And you don't put that on the back burner to go pursue other things. So when I got off the board, it made it possible for me to pursue a few other things. I feel really strongly about, especially new actors and new people who come into this vocation. Don't get stuck with one company. Go audition for other companies, even if you don't think you want to do that particular show or whatever it may be, or it might be too far to drive, or you don't think you'll get cast because you don't know anybody there. Go. Every theater company does things differently. Some places have closed auditions. Some places have open auditions. Some people have cattle calls. Some people want you to do ad lib and here's a pool noodle and make it do 3 different things and but everything's different. I strongly feel that even though you're a member of my team, go try other stuff. When you come back, you've learned so much. You're a better actor, you're a better director, you're at least more experienced and more exposed to all the different nuances of all the different companies out there. But when you're on a board, it's important that that's your number one focus. Your commitment is to that. So when I got off the board with Pittsfield, it made it possible for me to go do a few more things with some other companies, and I expanded my horizons a little bit. And then I came back to do a couple of shows, and the last thing that I did there was I directed Lend Me a Tenor 6 years ago. 6 years ago. I directed it there. And I got very, very lucky with a fantastic cast. You just know, sometimes every one of them clicks, and every one of them ends up being exactly the right person for the role that they're in, and everything just clicks. And they got along great. I got along great with them. It just was one of those shows. When the show was over, we all wanted to maintain our friendship and our connection, and we, like a lot of companies, were looking at, gee, I'd really love to do this show, but Pittsfield will never do that, and I'd really like to do that show, and I really wish somebody would do this, and and you just find that you wish there was XYZ. Well, we were all together one evening, and we just got to, 2 of the actors that were in the show who had been friends before the show got to chatting about, could New Hampshire handle one more theater company? Maybe we should do our own company, and then we can do what we want to do. Which is what a lot of theater companies do. We can do what we want to do if we own the company, Right. And that can kill you. But that was the original mindset, and we thought, well, let's get the people from this show who just got along so well, and we worked together so well. Let's ask a few of the other people. So we all got together, and the question was, can New Hampshire support it? And at the time, yep. So we decided, okay, we'll give it a go. We'll create our own company. We'll get started. And we decided, like, within 2 meetings of the creation of the company, if we survive 5 years, we'll bring back Lend Me a Tenor. If we don't survive, then we had a good time. It was a lot of fun. And that's that. But if we make it to the 5-year point, we'll revive the show. And that'll be our own congratulations to ourselves. Well, we've made it to 5 years, and we're bringing Lend Me a Tenor to the Hatbox. Nice. So we're really excited about that. We tried very hard to get the original cast to come back to do the revival. I was able to get 2 of the original cast who were available for the time slot at Hatbox. And that's, the other thing is when you don't own the venue, you're at the mercy of the timing that's available. Right. And the difficulty with Hatbox, I love them dearly. It's a great place to be, and I want to be there every chance I can. But they're a moving target when you're trying to plan your company's calendar. Because it's like, okay, well, we can do this show at this venue, and we'll do those 3 weekends, and then in the fall we'll do this, and then we'll pitch this to Hatbox, and we'll try to get that. But if we don't get March, we may have to settle for June. Oh, but wait, we've already got something scheduled for June. Then we'll have to cancel it. Hatbox is a moving target, so it can be fun trying to work around it because they pitch once a year. Yeah. But I totally understand that venue has to work in the manner that it does. And it's brilliant, but it can be challenging.
So there are major obstacles in creating a theater group. Mm-hmm. So as you guys are thinking about this, you don't have a home, you don't have a theater, you don't even have props and a set, you don't even have a place to build them. So
you bet. It's all on paper when you start. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sort of like Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland. Let's do a show in the backyard.
Yeah, right. Let's find somebody's barn and do something.
Well, fortunately, thespians are very dedicated people, and they're very passionate about it. And again, in community theater, you find a way to make it work. The first thing we had to do was the administration. We set up our articles of agreement and our mission statement and all that. We went to the state and got and the IRS, and we got our 501c3. We were very fortunate. We got it on the first shot. And so we became a 501c3. I know there are some theater companies that are large enough that the company itself is not, and then they have a fundraising organization that would be the Friends of, that would have the 501c3. But we didn't know if we were going to live long enough. So we went, got the 501c3, got all our paperwork in. And then just at the time that we were becoming a company, we heard about this little black box in Concord called the Hat Box. We said, ooh, that's interesting. And it turned out that one of the founders of Hatbox, Andrew Pinard, was an alum of the Pittsfield Players. And I saw the name and I went, oh, I know Andrew. And we got in contact. And Lemia Theater has a really great relationship. We were the first show that ever performed in the Hatbox.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we did a little two-person show. It was their first show prior to their true hard opening.
Yeah.
It was a little two-person show that I was in called To Across. That was their opening production. We got involved very heavily with helping them load in all those seats, screw them onto platforms, peel the bubble gum off the bottoms, scrub the floors, vacuum the floors. You know, because we cared about the concept, because we knew the people that were involved, and because we saw it realistically as an opportunity to develop a working relationship. So at the time, we didn't even know how Hatbox was going to set up their whole procedures and pitch nights and all of that. They were very new, and they were, finding their way as well. Right. So we kind of grew up together with that venue. So that gave us the opportunity to do our first show in a venue for 3 weekends. Yeah.
Was your first show as well?
Was our first.
So your first show, their first
show. Yep.
Oh, what a
yeah.
march.
Yeah. So that was very exciting, and we have a fellow who owns a home, who has a 3-stall garage, who is perfectly willing to allow us to use one of his stalls of his garage for storage and construction. So we have a spot for that.
Do you know how fast that fills up?
Yeah, we're already talking this year. We need to rent a storage space.
Yeah.
Because you can have a storage space or you can have a construction space, but they can't be the same space.
That's correct.
So over the years, we have been fortunate enough. The fellow who has this, Jack Miller, who is on our board of directors, who has this home and allows us to use his space, is also very, very good at searching out venues and negotiating deals and getting us into places. And one of the places that he was able to negotiate for us was to bring a one-time performance into the Tupelo Music Hall. And when we got in there, from what I understand, it was after they had moved from their Derry venue to the Londonderry venue, their new venue. We were the first performance to go into that venue that was not actually music for a music hall. So we went in, they took a chance on us, they did the food, it was a dinner theater, they did the food, we did the show, we came in, they made money, we made money, everybody was happy, and now we do 2 shows a year there.
And they're still successful.
And they're still successful. They are really terrific to us. They're so wonderful to work with, and it's from the community theater when you work in a place like Pittsfield where backstage is the back alley, and then you go to the Tupelo that has a green room and a performers only entrance in the back of the building and showers. Oh, we feel like big time. They treat us great. We do our best to do them right. And that venue, those 2 performances a year are profitable for us because they seat over 300 people. It's a big...
Do you sell them out?
Yeah. We have been selling them out.
300 seats shot?
Yeah, we've been selling them out.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, trust me, we know. We thank our lucky stars. We know how fortunate we are that we were able to negotiate that working arrangement with them. So we do our best to not do anything to jeopardize that. We
There's
try
not
very
much
hard.
dinner theater out there, is there?
I know Majestic does a lot of dinner
They do?
theater.
I
Yeah.
didn't know
But again, more often than not, the difficulty with dinner theater is the venues. You either have to find a venue that's got some sort of kitchen arrangement and you do the cooking yourself, or you have it catered, which can be very, very pricey. The arrangement that we have with Tupelo is that they have a kitchen and they do food. It's part of their business. So whenever we go in and do dinner theater, we bring in the show, we bring in bodies to help them with volunteers for serving and manning the buffet tables and whatever, and they do the food. So we don't have to deal with that aspect of it. They keep a portion of the ticket price, we keep a portion of the ticket price, and everybody's happy. And so that's done very well for us, and because it's been profitable for us, we have in the 5 years been able to purchase a portable stage that is between a $5,000 and $10,000 value. It's that has the little expanding accordion legs and is heavier than hell, and it's quite a chore, but it gives us the flexibility to be able to perform in spaces that don't necessarily have a raised proscenium stage. So we can go into a church or a school or an auditorium, a thing of that. We don't want to get pigeonholed into that going forward because there can be a little bit of a stigma of a performance being held in a school gym.
Yeah.
People will tend to think, oh, well, it's not going to be very professional, it's not going to be very good, which is not true. But you can see where it would have that appearance to the general public who are not on our side of the stage.
Yep.
Whereas if you can perform in, a place like Tupelo or Bedford Town Hall that has a stage and they have Bedford Off-Broadway and the venue is known, Hatbox is a theater, Audi, the Palace, all of these places that people know are theaters, and it lends something to the paying public. But we've been able to acquire the stage. We have a full set of pipe and drape that we can use. So depending on the performance area that we're working in, if we don't have the ability to build walls and doors and things of that nature, simplicity, you can do pipe and drape and just frame it with the black draping and bring it in and bring it out real quickly. We also have a 18-foot enclosed utility trailer that we use for storage that lives at Jack Miller's house because he has a house where he has room to park it.
We love you, Jack.
Yes, we love you, Jack. But that's the way it happens in community theater. The set is at one person's house, and all the costumes are at somebody else's house, and then all the props are in somebody else's basement. When we first came into existence, we had to decide on a name. And we knew that we didn't have a relationship with any theater. We knew that the odds of getting into the Audi were slim. They have conquered community players. And a lot of the well-established theater companies have established relationships with venues out there already. And there are only so many venues to go around. Yeah. So we knew that finding venues was going to be part of our challenge. So we tossed around a lot of names. And the play where we all met, Lend Me a Tenor, was the impetus for the selection of Lend Me a Theater, because we knew we would be nomads for a while. If we ever find a permanent home, we may have to change our name. But for now, we are Lend Me a Theater, and it has its own separate challenges of being nomadic. Generally, when we do a show, we will be in no less than 3 different venues in 3 weekends. So if that's a Saturday, it's not so bad because we can bring everything in the middle of the day, set up the stage, set up the set, set up the lights, we also have our own lights. We also have our own sound. We just spent $1,000 on Q Lab so that we can do all of our own sound cues and things of that nature so that we are not dependent on the abilities of the venue and what they have for tech. We have our own. So we have done a lot of reinvesting into the materials that the company needs.
I think Hatbox has Q-Lab too.
I think Hatbox has it, yeah. So when we go to Hatbox, not a problem, but when you go anywhere else, if you do a show that's Q heavy, light heavy, sound heavy, if you don't know what they have, it's very hard to design sounds and lights for 3 different venues with 3 different completely different equipment setups.
So you guys will take a show and do the same show at different venues?
Yep.
Rather than just say, okay, we're going to do one show and we'll run it for a weekend and then we go on.
No, we take it to, we generally, when we can, do 3 weekends. If we can
In 3 different venues?
In 3 different venues. So for this show that we have coming up, which is coming up in 2 weeks.
Is this the Living Tenor?
No, this is Poltergeist.
Okay.
Which is
Oh, yeah, I saw that on Facebook.
yeah. So it's a we picked it for this time slot because it's seance kind of. It's a dinner theater. We are doing it in 2 weeks on a Friday night at the Bedford Town Hall. Bedford Off-Broadway, who is their resident company, has been very helpful with us. This is the second time we bring a show in there, and they've given us their blessing and helped us get into the schedule. There, we're doing a Friday night because that's what was available on the calendar. So instead of doing a complete dinner theater, which can be difficult on a Friday night because people work and then they got to run and get to the theater at 6 o'clock at night and get dressed, and so that can be difficult on both cast, crew, and audience. So for this venue, we're doing dessert. So the price is a little less, but it's go home, have dinner, see your kids, get changed, come to the theater, see the first half of the show, and then we're going to have a decadent dessert. And then the close of the show. It's a Friday night. But because it's a Friday, I got to get in there some other time and set up my set. So it can be demanding sometimes because it's either 1 or 2 or 3 people have to take some time off from work and go in early that day. Or we got lucky this time, there was an opening on the calendar for us to go in on Wednesday, set up our set, run our lights, run our sound, do our tech dress on Wednesday night, and then Friday, all we have to do is show up and do the show. But Friday when the show's done, I got to pack it all back into the trailer and take it out of there. So we're not only the performers, but we're also the gaffers, yeah, and the techs.
So
and,
then,
and the lights.
when does the next performance happen?
The next performance is the following weekend, Friday and Saturday night, at the Doubletree in Manchester. They have several rooms, and again, they are a company that does that has their own restaurant, their own kitchen, and they're going to do the catering for that. So we come in, set up the stage because it's in a conference room. So that venue, we have to set up the stage, and then we have to set up the set. And then we do the show. And then we bring volunteers in, and we help with serving the food, and then we clear the chairs, and then we clear the tables, and then we take the set down, and then we take the stage down, and then we pack it all into the trailer and bring it back to Jack's house.
Oh, what a nightmare.
And then the weekend after that, we take the trailer to Tupelo. And Tupelo is a Saturday, so fortunately that performance we can get in there earlier in the day, and they have a stage, so I don't have to set up my stage, but I still have to bring in my set. And then we do the performance.
Do they have lights there too?
They have lights and sound, yeah.
I've
we
never
get
been
to
there.
we get to use all their equipment. It's a beautiful venue,
Oh, yeah?
beautiful. They have their stage area. Right in front of that is a sunken dining area that has, I don't know, maybe 22 tables in it. And then behind that is a little raised area with some tables, and then behind that is stadium seating.
Really?
Yep. So what we do, now that we have a brand recognition there and the audience comes, we sell all of the tables for dinner, but we also open up the stadium seating for anybody who wants to come and just see the show and not pay for the dinner. So there's 2 ticket prices for that. And then people come in, we open the doors like an hour and a half before the show and do dinner, and then about a half an hour before the show itself, they open the doors the second time for the stadium seating, and those people can watch just the show.
Mm.
So, it's been a very, very, very good working relationship that we greatly appreciate, but it is demanding.
Work.
Yeah, it is a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
Yeah, we have a very small core group of board members who wear all the hats, and we're not getting any younger. I mean, seriously, we've got, let's see, the youngest one on our board right now is probably late 30s, and so we're always on the lookout to recruit people. It's part of what we decided was part of what we wanted to do when we created the organization of Lend Me a Theater, was not just to do the shows that we want to do and have fun and be able to direct them and produce them and act in them, but to bring in new people. And so like the show that we got coming up, Poltergeist, he's a brand spanking new director. I'm his mentor. He's got an assistant director who is Doris George, who has worked.
Hi, Doris. I love Doris.
Yeah, Doris is.
Yeah.
We love Doris. She's fantastic. I think I'm the only director that's ever gotten Doris to actually appear on stage in a show.
Really?
She got to come out as the stage manager and deliver one line. But, it's community theater. It's kind of hard to ask somebody to come and rehearse for 2 months for one line. So
Yeah.
I said, Doris, can you do it? It's one line. And she did it for me. So, but she is the quintessential backstage help person. Oh my God. The stuff that she has acquired over the years to serve as a stage manager, she's brilliant, just brilliant.
Yeah.
So we're thrilled to have her. She was involved. She was my stage manager when we did Lend Me a Tenor at Pittsfield, and she came with us when she was ready. It was time to reinvent and move on. You don't want to become stagnant.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with, staying with a commitment for 20, 30 years if that is your desire. But I don't hold it against anybody who after 10 or 15 years just wants to reinvent and explore.
Yeah.
And that's part of why we created Lend Me a Theater, was to reinvent and explore.
So when you created it, when you first started out, did you have any idea you'd be doing dinner theater?
We thought it was possible.
You did?
Yeah. We thought it was not only possible, but likely. And again, I keep coming back to Jack Miller. Love you, Jack. Jack got married, I want to say 2 years after, it was either a year or 2 years after we were established, and we were working on the concept of dinner theater, but we were working in like church halls and things, and so we were doing a lot of the food ourselves, while we were trying to develop this whole thing, Jack did a spectacular wedding. It was like producing a show. They did it themselves, and they purchased, because he's a buying agent for the company that he works for, so he has access to some good pricing and things and things. So he got dinnerware and silverware, china, chafing dishes, tablecloths, all kinds of things for the reception of his wedding. He bought them. And then when his wedding was over, he donated them to Lend Me a Theater and took the tax write-off. So it was a win. So it was a win-win for everybody. So now we have everything we need, so that if we are in a venue where we have to do the food, or even if we just bring in a caterer and we have to do the serving, we have the hot boxes, we have the coffee pots, the urns, we have everything we need to be able to do it ourselves. We much prefer somebody else catering it, like Tupelo or Doubletree, where they do it and we just bring in the show, but we have the ability to do it.
I just can't. It's hard enough starting the theater. The fact that you also figured in, or were factoring in, that you think you're gambling, that there may be a niche here for dinner theater is far beyond what I would ever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a vision. You have a vision, because I just can't. There's so much work involved. There's so much work in just doing a play, period.
Yep.
On top of that, now you're going to provide a dinner?
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, you're not handing out Twizzlers. This is a dinner.
Oh my goodness, yeah. No, it's a dinner. Yeah, and then nowadays, which, again, this is not a complaint, it's just a fact, but you will have at least a dozen people who are gluten-free.
Oh, God, yeah, I know.
Dairy
nowadays.
intolerant.
Peanut allergies. Good grief.
And you do everything you can to accommodate. I mean, I do not speak ill of anyone who has to deal with those challenges, those dietary challenges, but it can be very challenging to accommodate them. And then, of course, you get all the different definitions of, I'm a vegetarian. Oh, you're serving fish? I didn't know you were serving fish. I'll have the fish. Well, what's your definition of vegetarian then? Because we prepared this.
I'm lactose, vegan.
So, because we prepared this one dish right here just for you that has nothing in it except, that's the truth. Yeah, so it can be challenging. We've learned so much over the last 5 years on how to get the information you need far enough ahead to be able to make the accommodations.
Let me give you a tip. I hope somebody is documenting this process, and then you can write a book. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Because people don't want to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
And if there's a chance that there's another group out there somewhere, and you already have this information, it'd be worth it to them to pay $9.95 and buy your
Well, on page 1, it would be step 1, find the people.
Do not do this. Warning. Put it right in the forward.
Danger, Will Robinson.
Yes.
Yeah. But again, I cannot give enough credit to the people that were involved in getting this all started. We had, and pray to God I don't forget anybody, we had Jack Miller, Kat Abdel-Wahid, myself, Doris George, Paul Smith, Greg Parker. Those are the 6 that were from the original cast that became involved. A couple of them we have moved on because for different things, jobs,
Life.
Work-related, life, yeah. It gets in the way. Can you imagine how much theater we could do if we didn't have to eat and sleep?
That's right.
You know?
Round
And work
the clock.
jobs.
Yes.
But, so.
Stupid life.
Yeah, but this group, every one of them has their tremendous assets. So Doris George is just spectacular backstage, and when we run into concerns with a play, can we do this or can we do that? She has the insight, what you can do backstage, what you can't do backstage. We had Greg Parker as one of our founding fathers, who is spectacular with tech. I mean, Hatbox uses him a lot now, and I wish him the best because he has just expanded his horizons working with a lot of other companies.
Oh.
Yes, he's very sought after, from what I understand, to work in specifically at Hatbox, because again, you have an expansion of theater companies. We're in one of those blooms right now, like a green algae bloom,
Yeah.
of theater companies, and a venue like the Hatbox contributes to that, and that's not a bad thing because I'm all about the expansion of the arts. But in a venue like Hatbox, what you have is a lot of companies. Oh, I can just go do one show there. All I have to do is pitch, and if they pick me up, I can do a show. And you get a lot of companies who are newbies, who are not necessarily blessed with someone from every aspect
Right.
of theater.
And probably not.
Who can foresee all of the aspects of what it takes to produce. For example, there's a couple of companies that are playwrights who, and I feel their pain because playwrights can write and have all kinds of fantastic material, but then they've got to go begging to find somebody to produce it and put it on the stage and bring it to life. So when a venue like Hatbox comes along, there's an opportunity for some playwrights to get together and create an organization and pitch their plays. And I give Hatbox kudos that they are willing to accept all different types of performance art in their venue. But a theater company, a production company that's comprised of just playwrights and doesn't have the breadth of staff for people who know what it takes to build a set, know what it takes to run the sound, know what it takes to work with QLab, and they don't have access to all of those other aspects of talent, it's a real hard thing for them to do, and there's a lot of learning that goes on for them.
Yeah.
We were very fortunate that we had, for example, Jack Miller is a businessman, and he is our master negotiator. He's also very tech savvy, so he was able to help us with getting our online ticket service up and running and getting our website going. Then we have Kat Abdel-Wahid, who is our PR person, who is very good at Hatbox. At Facebook and at social media. And she manages all of that for us because I'm on Facebook.
That's a lot of work.
I'm on Facebook, but I'm only on Facebook because I have to be. I think I have 10 friends because I don't, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So, but she's exceptionally well, and in this day of age, that's what you have to do. That is how you get the word out.
Instagram, Twitter.
You have to follow. You have to follow the tech. You don't have any choice. So that's the way to get the word out. So she's spectacular at that. So we had talent in every aspect of it right from the start.
Yeah.
So we were very, very fortunate that we were able to pull that all together at once.
But you didn't have a chef.
Yeah, we did. Well, no, not really.
You want to do dinner there. You don't have a chef.
We have a lot of volunteers that have done that, though. Jack's a really good cook, and then we have another person that we met from Pittsfield, which is Vicky I want to say Paisano. It used to be Vicky Skoog, and I can never pronounce her name correctly. Paisino. Vicky Paisino. She is a great cook, and she has come in and volunteered every time that we did a dinner theater and it wasn't catered. She's come in and run my kitchen for me. She's spectacular. So we do have another level of volunteers who have come in and just been our wait staff at Tupelo, or just come in and helped us build a set, or just put the stage up, and then, you know, they get to see the show for free and have a good time, and then we all go out for pizza afterwards or whatever. And community theater, the lifeblood is your volunteers, because everybody's volunteers.
Everybody.
But the beauty part of that is because everybody volunteers, everybody's passionate about it.
Yeah.
So that love is there.
Yeah.
So it helps.
Yeah. It's amazing the connections you can make.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So being a sort of nomadic theater group, do you find that that's limiting you on shows that you would like to do? In what way? What's happening?
Mostly sets. Mostly the size and the complexity of sets, because we have to keep moving it. So, for example, with Lend Me a Tenor going into Hatbox, I only have to move that set once.
Mm-hmm.
I have to build it twice, but I only have to move it to a second venue for one performance, and then it's done. So I can go with a more elaborate set. Lend Me a Tenor has 5 functioning doors. It's a very slamming doors. It's almost like British farce, but so you don't do that with Pipe and Drape. And it has to be rugged and sturdy enough to be able to stand a lot of door slamming and not have walls falling over. So that one's a challenge. I could never do that show and have to move it 5 or 6 times. It's just too much set.
Yeah.
Or there could be a show that has, what is it? I think it's Barefoot in the Park. That is a show that's got like 15 or 20 scene changes, and it goes from an apartment to a park to a hallway to a here to a there. The importance of being earnest is only 3 different locations, but it's a very elaborate looking set, and you move from scene to scene a number of times. That can be very challenging when you go to a venue where you can't screw into the floor, you can't attach to the walls. It has to be a completely freestanding thing. It has to be portable, has to be lightweight so that you're not killing your volunteers moving it up 3 flights of stairs because they don't have a lift or an elevator. So there are all sorts of challenges. We actually have developed a system of flats that we use that are made out of hollow core square aluminum instead of 1x4s or 2x4s. So they're unbelievably lightweight. And then we just attach Luan for the faces or fabric or whatever it is that you...
That's smart.
The only time we can't use the aluminum flats is, Lend Me a Tenor, because of the doors. Because they're great for walls and pictures and windows and things of that nature. And we're working on a system right now to make them interchangeable so that we could possibly put hinges on them so you could flip one side to the other side and change a scene and things of that nature. Very, very lightweight, so it makes it portable that we can put it on the trailer and get it where we need to go and get it up a flight of stairs. But it's just not rugged enough for anything that involves doors or anything that needs to take that kind of abuse. But for most shows, it's working out really, really well. We've done a lot of different things with those. So that, again, community theater, where there's a will, you find a way.
Yeah.
Because the challenges can be enormous. Just moving from venue to venue and having to carry up a flight of stairs. We did a performance last year at the Concord Country Club. We got hired to do a single performance for a company party. So the company...
Full show?
A full show, yep. We had to bring in the stage, then we had to bring in the set. Fortunately, it was a fairly minimalist set, but still building the stage is a project. And you bring it in, they have their dinner, you do the show, they go have drinks, you tear down.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yep. And this past season, we brought a show up to the Cliff House in Maine, which was just spectacular.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a wedding and conference and hotel kind of venue, but this is the kind of place that has Lamborghinis in the parking lot. Yeah, that place was beautiful. But it was the same situation. There was an insurance company who was having an annual business weekend conference thing. And so for part of what they had people staying for the entire weekend, and part of what they did was they brought us in for the entertainment. We went in, conference room, 9-foot ceilings, 10-foot ceilings, build a stage, so everybody can see you because they're all sitting at dinner tables. Build a stage that's 18 inches off the floor, then build a set on top of that, set up your lights, focus your lights, set up your sound, do your checks. If you get there, if you're allowed to get there early enough, maybe do a quick Q to Q or a full run through. Find a place and like
the chances of something going wrong
are tremendous.
Yes,
they have. I got stuck in four-wheel drive low, and it took me 24 hours to figure out how to get out of it because their loading dock was in a place where you could not. They wouldn't let us use their primary loading dock because in order to get from that dock to the room that we were performing in meant going through the lobby. And they didn't want us dragging all our gear and the stage and everything through the lobby. So they made us use another side door. The side door was about 30 feet from the road that I had to park on with the trailer. And the road that I had to park on was at about a 30-degree slope and curved and only wide enough for one car to pass at a time because it was the road that went down to the loading dock that they wouldn't let us use.
Man.
So it was backing up the trailer in, four-wheel drive low and unloading everything and carrying it 30 feet to the door to get into the room. There was no ramp, so everything had to go up like a set of 3 stairs. Yeah, sometimes the challenges are almost not worth it, but you find that out when you get there, and then you make the decision, well, we'll never do that again, or, oh, you know what, this was worth it. It wasn't that bad.
Was it? Did it turn out to be worth it?
Yeah, it was worth it. It was profitable.
Yeah, okay.
As long as it's profitable.
There you go.
Because it was a private party, so they just paid us a flat fee, and we went in and did the show. Same thing with the show that we took to the Concord Country Club. It was a private party. We got hired at a flat rate to just bring in the show and do the performance. So I didn't have to negotiate a deal with the venue for those two things. It was just bring it in, do it, and leave.
Yeah.
So every show is different. Every deal is different.
For you?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Every deal is different. Sometimes it includes we do the food. Sometimes the venue does the food. Sometimes we're bringing in a caterer. Sometimes there's no food at all. Sometimes there's a lift. Sometimes you're lugging it up 3
You're all going to have no hair like me soon. I mean, oh my God.
Yeah,
You have more variables in your...
This is where all the, But, the thing is getting to this point in life, you learn that the stuff that you remember and the stuff you talk about is not always the stuff that went perfect.
Yeah. Well, those are some of the greatest memories,
yeah,
actually.
Yeah.
You'll laugh like crazy in years to come.
Everybody, how many times have you been at a cast party or any theater gathering and an hour and a half is spent just telling horror stories?
Of course. It's the first thing you do.
So,
It's like an unwritten rule.
Yep. Well, I can top that. You think that was bad?
And usually they can top it, too. It's pretty crazy.
It is.
So, lend me a theater. What's this year look like for you guys? What's happening?
Okay, so right now we have Poltergeist coming up into its last 2 weeks of rehearsal. That is going to be followed by Lend Me a Tenor, which is our 5th year revival, which will be at Hatbox in March of 2020. And then after that, it just happens that our calendar has fallen into a situation where we have about a 5-month hiatus before our next performance, which will be in the fall of 2020, during which, and it's a good time at the 5-year mark, we're going to sit back and as a board, we're going to reassess, we're going to look at our assets, we're going to look at our company format. Do we want to change anything about our membership plan? Do we want to look at just spending some time investigating and pursuing some new venues so that we're not always chasing venues last minute while we're already in rehearsal for a show. All of the business that's behind the scenes of just producing a show, the business of just being a company. We're going to spend 4 or 5 months through the summer, plus the difficulty of sometimes casting a show that involves rehearsing in the summer. That can be challenging, where everybody's volunteer, everybody's on vacation, people like to take the summer off. So we're going to take a little bit of a break there and do some of the behind the scenes business. And then in the fall, we are looking at a dinner theater, because we are now in a nice cycle with Tupelo, which is always dinner theater, which is something in the spring and something in the fall. We're looking at a couple of different shows. We're looking at Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, which we'd like to take to Hatbox. Right now, we're in negotiations to get the rights. We tried to pitch it last year, and the rights were not available. Apparently, there was a national tour somewhere. So the rights were not. Yeah, those professionals. How dare they? But so we looked at that. We're still requesting rights. I've got an application in right now to possibly pitch that for 2021 at Hatbox, or maybe fall of 2020. We're also looking at Clue. We're also looking at a couple of other dinner theater scripts that we have already in our purview. One of the ones that we're doing right now was actually from a small dinner theater company out in the Midwest who wrote their own scripts. And they were a company that if you paid for the rights for 2 of their scripts, you could get a 3rd one for nothing.
Wow.
So we went ahead and did that, and we threw them in our script pile. And so we have a couple of options there. That and again, it's not only finding the right play and finding the venue, then it's finding a director who's interested, and are they available. Finding directors is more challenging than finding cast.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I find it that way. A lot of there are sort of like 3 levels of people involved in theater. There are the ones who just want to act. They want to be actors, and they want to audition, and they want to have fun, and I don't begrudge them that, because there's tons of talent, and that's what they should do because they're so good at it.
Right.
And then there's this middle strata who are people who like to do everything. I kind of fall into that. I love to direct. I love being involved in set design. I also like to act. Unfortunately, you can't direct and act at the same. Well, you shouldn't direct and act at the same time. It happens, but. And then there are the ones who are just about the production. So Doris George is one of these people who is all about making it happen, but she doesn't want to be in the lights. There are people who run companies like Betty Thompson, who was a person behind the scenes who just wanted to make it happen. And there are varying people who kind of move in and out of those different stratas. Directors, a lot of times, a lot of the directors out there are like me, who are people who direct and act. And if you get involved in a company who only has 1 or 2 directors in their wheelhouse, you end up doing a lot more directing than you get the opportunity to act, because you only have 1 or 2 directors in your company, whereas you can always get dozens of actors because they'll come from other companies. A lot of times directors don't always move from company to company. They tend to find a home where they work well, and they know the venue, and they know what's available to them, and things like that. So and directing is scary. When you're an actor, even though you're involved with a lot of other actors and you're dependent on them holding up their end, ultimately you only have to worry about you. You have to make sure you know your blocking, you know your lines,
right.
You know where you need to be, you show up at rehearsals, and you give it 110% when you're on the stage. But when you're a director, you have to worry about everybody.
And everything.
And everything.
Costume, set, lines.
Even if you're not the one that makes it happen, you're the one that has to make the decisions.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you're the captain of the ship there.
Yeah, exactly. And then and deal with rehearsal schedules, and where do you rehearse? For example, where does my company rehearse? We don't have a theater. I am fortunate that I work for a union that has a union hall that has a very big meeting hall, and we rent that space for our rehearsals. So I have access to that. But if I didn't work there, I can't retire because then we won't be able to have a rehearsal space.
Right.
But those are an issues. But then you have to schedule it. So my hall is only available on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and so you decide to have auditions, and you have all these people that you want to use, and 3 of them can't be there on Monday nights because they work, and somebody else can't be there on Thursday nights because of this, that, or the other thing, and then you get to Hell Week before you have a full cast.
Yeah.
So there's those kinds of challenges. So directing is unbelievably rewarding, but it is unbelievably demanding as well.
Yeah.
So and it's one of those things that you can't do at home. I mean, you can maybe work with the script and do your blocking and things and make notes and everything, but as an actor, you can take your script home and you can sit at 2 o'clock in the morning at the kitchen table and run lines if that's what you choose to do, and you can run it in the car, and you can do, there's all kinds of things as an actor. You can make use of any time on the clock, but a director, it all happens at the rehearsals, so you're married to that schedule, and you have to be there. Even if, you have to be there for all of them.
Right.
That's
right.
Yeah.
There's no scene you're not in.
Yeah. You
You're
guys
there.
just rehearse without me tonight because I won't be there.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it has its challenges. Wow.
So you're doing 3 plays? You Poltergeist?
We try for 3 a year.
Okay.
Yeah. So
3 different plays.
3 completely different plays a year. That's about all we can manage.
I can't imagine it.
Yeah. I don't want to cut it back to 2, mostly because that's a lot of time in between the 2, and
Yeah, but you're doing them in different places too.
Uh-huh.
This is kind of fascinating. I mean, you've added a level here of difficulty that most groups don't have.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So,
It is
so
quite.
that every time you add in another play,
It's another search for
it's
venues.
exponentially
Yep.
a problem.
It's a search for venues, and it's a search for materials and personnel. And, yeah.
So now at 5 years, you're going to sit down and you're going to hash out things. What do you think is the number one issue that you think you guys will be trying to resolve?
I think there's 2 goals that we have. I think in the long term, I think we would like to not be nomadic. I don't see that happening in the immediate future because, like I said earlier, there are only so many venues out there, and most of the venues that exist already have a home company that works there. Like Bedford Off-Broadway has the Bedford Town Hall. It's very uncommon for another theater company to go in there. They're the resident company.
Yeah. But we're having that problem. We were going to do proof up at the Winnipesaukee Playhouse, and it fell through. And
How come?
well, they want to go dark for the winter and or for a few months in the winter, and so by the time we were going to pay, we'd have to pay to have for the heat and the rental space to build a set and all that stuff, because we don't have a home.
Yeah.
And so we thought, well, we'll go find another space. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, good luck with that.
The pitch night's already over for Hatbox. We can't just jump in the middle of their season. There's no other small areas, right? Where are you going to go?
Yeah, and proof it's a small show that can be done in a nice, intimate venue.
Yeah, and you don't. We're not going to put it in the Audi.
No.
So, because there's 800 seats to try to fill,
Yeah.
So it's just not going to happen. And I'm with you. It's very difficult to find a venue out there. They're not just sitting there waiting for people to.
They're not empty.
No.
Yep. And then if you can find a venue that would be happy to bring you in for a show, they don't necessarily want to start committing to you as you're the resident company there and nobody else is ever going to come in and so that is a huge challenge. Ultimately, we would love to not be nomadic just because we're all getting older.
So would you like to be like the Majestic and have a home like that?
Something like, or even if it could be just 1 or 2 venues that are our staple, and we don't have to go out and find and negotiate new deals every show with new venues. Even that would be desirable.
But you kind of have that already with Tupelo, right?
We do have Tupelo.
They're kind of your template.
1 performance.
Right.
So, I mean, the sad thing is you only do it once, you ring it in, you tear it down, and you only do it once there. However, we get to perform for over 300 people in that 1 performance. So, and it's a really nice space, so we love there. We love it there. So that's helpful. You
do 1 show there? One performance of each show because you go spring and fall?
Yeah.
That's it? Just
1 performance.
Oh.
Yep.
As opposed to like the Hatbox, which you're doing 9.
9. So that's the beauty part of Hatbox is it's either 6 or 9 depending on what time slot you get there, but most of them are 9. The challenge is that's a lot of royalties to pay. The beauty part is a show like Lend Me a Tenor, I only have to build that set once and then it stays there for 3 weeks.
Right.
And especially a set of that size and that heft, I don't have to pack it up and move it.
Right.
So
the
that's
downside
beautiful.
is they don't have a lot of seating.
Yeah.
So
and with the set the size of Lend Me a Tenor, I'm probably going to cut the seating down to about half. I'm probably going to have to go proscenium.
Wow.
Because the set is so big.
Oh, that hurts.
It's 2 full-size rooms. It's got a full-size bed in it. It's got a living room set in it. It's got 9. It's got 5 doors. A bathroom, a closet, 3 doors into the hallway. It's
For folks who don't know, you're going from 90 seats to, what, 45, 50?
I think you can do 56 or 60 when you do proscenium. But if it sells out every show,
Yes.
because the
Well, that's what
seating
your
is
hope is,
limited,
right?
you know,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
can sell, I mean, if we can sell 60 seats, I'd rather have 60 seats sold and there's only 60 seats to be had than sell 60 seats out of 200 and they're scattered all over the theater, you know?
Yeah.
So if that's what we end up having to do, and I'm pretty sure that's probably what we're going to end up having to do, just because we picked that show and it's a big set. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Next time around, if we can get Rosencrantz and Guildenstern in there, that's going to be that's a show that's a multitude of locations, but it can be all suggestion. It doesn't have to be walls and doors. It can be all just simple flats that suggest a location. And entrances and exits that go in and out of pipe and drape and things. So that'll be much, much easier. And I would be able to do that without having to cut down the seating so much. But
Yeah.
that's probably what will happen with this one. The other goal that I think Lend Me a Theater will have, above and beyond not being nomadic so much, will be to be profitable enough, or to be in a position and well known enough and have a big enough following. I'd like to think we're there. I'm not sure if we're there completely. To be able to not be pigeonholed into just dinner theater. Because right now, 2 out of 3 shows a year are dinner theater. And not that I don't like dinner theater, but a lot of the dinner theater that we're doing right now, because it's popular, it's proven to go very well at Tupelo, is a lot of the murder mystery and audience participation and things of that nature. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we don't want that to be everything we do. So, like, having Hatbox available gives us the opportunity to do things like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, or do Marjorie Prime, to do some dramas, to do some avant-garde pieces, and to do some challenging work, maybe do a musical and do Sondheim. We did I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change. The only way I was able to do that was at the Hatbox, because I could get in there for 3 weekends, and I could get a musician and a music director to come in to a single location for 3 weekends. That's a little tough when you're moving the show all over the place.
Yeah.
It is. So our goal would be to be able to be a little more versatile in the types of scripts that we're performing. So that, because we don't want to slide into, that's all we do,
Yeah.
is slapstick dinner theater.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything against it. I just don't want it to become the only thing we do. Because every one of us wants to challenge themselves. And maybe even do a Shakespeare. Who knows?
Right.
You know? But you got to find a venue and an audience.
So, is geography a problem as well? I mean, is there a distance you won't go? Have you been to Portsmouth?
We have not been to Portsmouth. We have been to Maine. We've been to the Cliff House once. That was a private party. We've gone as far as we've gone to Derry, Manchester, Bedford, Laconia, Salem,
Obviously
the southern
country.
half of the state. We've talked about approaching the Flying Monkey. We would go there if it's profitable. I mean, we're fortunate. We bought ourselves a utility trailer. We have an 18-foot enclosed utility trailer, so I can pack up a set. It's not like I'm throwing it in the backs of, 7 cars,
Yeah,
and
right.
the cast is involved in being responsible for things, and then somebody forgets something. And that was the biggest reason we did that, was because we thought about that. One time we actually rented a U-Haul to move a set. And that turned out to be a nightmare, because we unloaded the truck and everybody went in the theater, and somebody had turned on the box light to be able to see, and then left it on. And then at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, I'm the only one there, and I hop in to drive the truck away, and it's dead. AAA, where are you?
Oh, man.
So with a utility trailer, anybody in the company that has a pickup truck that can tow it can go and fetch it and bring it wherever it needs to go. So it doesn't always fall on one person, unless there's only one person with a pickup.
Do you collaborate with any other theaters at all? Any other theater groups? Have you done any collaborative work?
The only thing that comes close to collaborative is just Bedford Off-Broadway helping us to get into the Bedford Town Hall. That's working out well right now. If there are any other theater companies out there that want to join up with us and do something collaborative, we are definitely open to that. Definitely.
So you
open
do
to
your
that.
auditions and then take your show out. You don't, like, approach Bedford Off-Broadway and say, we want to do a show there, and then audition there, right?
We have
You
not,
bring
no.
it, you you bring everything in.
We bring
Cast
it in. We bring everything in. Yeah, we have our auditions at my hall. We do all our rehearsals at my hall. So the other difficulty is, like we work at Hatbox. We've been there every year since they opened, and we hope that we keep that relationship going for a long time. We love it there. They do a quote-unquote cattle call, which is what they refer to it in New York. But they do a mass audition. And everybody that's going to produce a show there sends a representative to look at the auditions, and they film a lot of them and then post them on their website for producers to look at.
I didn't know they filmed them. Wow.
Yeah, they just started that this
That's
year, that they
smart.
videotape the audition. So if your company wants to do a show at Hatbox and you get picked, and then you want to cast from that audition, but you can't send somebody, you can go online and see the...
Or even if you forgot their audition and
Right.
you wanted to go, it's a refresher.
And that works out well, but the further and further and further out on the calendar you are, the harder that becomes. So I can go to an audition there in April, and I can see all these actors, but my show is not until the following March.
Yeah, that's a problem. I know.
It's kind of difficult to get someone to commit that far out. And then we always do our own in-house auditions anyway, because there are a lot of people who like to work with us who don't necessarily come to the Hatbox auditions. They're from a different part of the state, whatever. And then we might hold our auditions in November for a March show, and by then everybody I saw at Hatbox is already committed to something else.
Right.
You know, so it can be challenging. It can be challenging. So we have found that for the most part, we do our in-house auditions, and wherever we go, we bring everything. It's worked so far. So.
Yeah. So are there shows then, now that you're thinking that way, trying to get out of that, I don't want to call it stigma.
No, just get out of the box a little.
Yeah, so what would you look at? What kind of you must have something in the back of your mind, or someone does, where you'd be like, I'd like to do this play.
Well, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern is definitely the one that I've been chomping at the bit to do for like 3 years now. We just keep butting up with challenges on rights and access and things. I would love to see us maybe possibly take a stab at a Shakespeare. More musicals. I would love to see Sunday in the Park with George. I would do that in a heartbeat. Those are personal preferences of mine that I'd like to see us do, and I'm sure that everybody else on our board has, one or two shows in their back pocket that, I would love to do that, and maybe they even think we can't right now. But yeah, if there's a will to make something happen, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Doesn't the only thing is just the venue.
Yeah.
More than anything, that's the challenge. Where do I have to take it? And so I have to build it to fit.
It's amazing when you go to a Hatbox pitch night to see how many groups have this same kind of issue with it. They don't have a home.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're trying to be a viable theater group.
Yeah.
All battling it out for a venue.
Yeah. And like I said, we're at one of those blooms right now.
Yes.
Yeah, it definitely, like we
They
came
don't have
in.
a problem getting people to fill their theater.
Yeah.
I mean, the groups.
Yeah.
There's no
They're not
lack.
having a problem finding companies, but the companies are having a problem finding people.
Yeah.
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 Or even rehearsal space or costumes or, it's like if you need a choreographer. Actors, 100.
I know.
Choreographer 1. Actors 200, musical directors 3. I mean, the balance. So, if everybody decides that in the spring of 2021, there's 5 Sondheims that want to happen, and they're all big casts, and you need a music director for everyone, and you need these a costumer for everyone. And, if you don't get those commitments 6 months ahead, you might find yourself having to
baby.
not cast a show because the talent isn't there.
Yeah.
There's plenty, there's tons of talent, but it just, the more companies there are.
Yeah, I don't think Hatbox hasn't had a problem where they've had to cancel a show yet, right? Because of an issue?
The worst that I know of, and it happened to us, was we pitched Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and then Rosencrantz and Guildenstern pulled the rights, and we had to go in with a secondary, which is Lend Me a Tenor.
So the good news is you have a slot.
Yeah.
The bad news is
I can't do the show I told you I was going to do. Can I bring in this other show? But we already had Lend Me a Tenor in the works.
Yeah.
It was just that we were going to pitch it elsewhere, and then when Rosencrantz fell through, we fell in the mercy of Hatbox and said, we do have this other show, would you please And we understand if you say, no, we committed to this show and we have 10 other companies over here. They were kind, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, they're very accommodating.
Yeah, they're very accommodating.
Andrew's great.
Yeah. The whole gang over there is really something else. And it's just what Concord needed. It's just what New Hampshire needed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, he formatted himself on the Players Ring over in Portsmouth. It's a very similar arrangement. And it's brilliant because it's not like a company, like the Capitol Center of the Arts that, is a multi-million-dollar facility that has to bring in big acts and you have to schedule things in there 3 years in advance, and or even the Audi, who already has a resident company, and and it's great for the mall. I mean, I'm really excited that the mall is going to survive in some other fashion.
Yeah, we hope, right? I don't know what they're going to do with it, but...
We hope.
So, let's talk about... You don't have much time. What do you do in your spare time, then? Do you watch TV at all?
What's that?
Yeah, you might want to look it up.
Yeah. Actually,
Your
mostly,
favorite show you're watching?
Right now, I just finished the 3rd season of Stranger Things.
Oh, great show.
Yeah,
great show.
And I was funny because I got to the last episode of the 3rd season and the credits started rolling and I almost turned it off, but my cat was in my lap and I didn't want to move, so I just watched all the credits, and then this little snippet came up and it said, it's confirmed there will be a 4th season, and I jumped out of my chair and went, yay!
They're very happy. I don't know where they're going to go with it, but...
I know, Hopper's gone.
I know.
But because of rehearsal schedules and jobs and grandkids and families and everything, I'm much more likely to wait until a show is done and then binge it, because I just can't keep up with it. I never watched Breaking Bad until it was off the air.
What a great show.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fantastic.
Oh my God!
But it's the only way I can stay on top of it, because if I'm watching it weekly, even if I DVR it, there's just so many other things that I forget, and I'd rather just be able to just binge something 2 or 3 episodes a night for a couple of weeks, and in between theater.
Yeah. Well, and I have the same problem when I'm doing acting, and even if you know your lines, you still want to keep reviewing them. And there's very few instances. My wife has shows that she'll watch, and I just never watch them because I can't get invested, and they'll go weeks before I'll ever see the next episode.
Oh, yeah.
So I just don't bother most of the time.
Yeah.
It's a pain in the butt.
I'm probably one of the only people who's never seen The Sopranos. You
folks don't see The Wizard of Oz. You don't see The Sopranos. What is going on in that household?
I will be in my rocking chair and 90 years old, and I'll start getting caught up on shows from 2015.
Yeah. I hope we paid our Hulu subscription, because I'm about to binge.
Yeah, and you wake me up when the good part comes. So,
Yes.
I'll have time for that when I'm dead.
Yeah, exactly, right. So did we get everything on your list? Anything you wanted to bring up about
no, the list was mostly just if you asked me, I could always refer to it because I didn't want to forget, But I even brought the old resume that shows, and I have 2 resumes.
You brought your resume?
Oh yeah, well, just in case I wanted to remember a show or a role or something. I have my resume for acting. I have my resume for directing.
The first person who's done any homework to be on the podcast.
Oh,
Gee.
well, when you get over 60 and you realize that, you can remember 300 pages of dialogue, but you can't remember what you did yesterday.
The play you did 2 years ago.
Yeah. Or, I know I did that show, but what was the name of the character I played? Check the resume. Oh, yeah, there it is, yeah.
I'm terrible about that.
Because once I don't need to deal with it anymore, I look at...
Flush. Yeah. That flushing sound is my brain.
I think my brain is sort of like a hard drive, and there's only so much space in there, and it's full right now, so if I want to put anything else in, something else has to get deleted.
Yeah.
And it's usually, the name of a character from 10 years ago or something.
I heard a quote one time that somebody attributed to Einstein. I don't know if he actually ever said it, but the quote is, "I never remember anything I can look up." Albert Einstein. Which makes brilliant sense.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing he just needs to keep all that space
keep this-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like the
Available.
desktop, which is the work area, just bring in all the things you need
Yeah.
to build something and then put them all away again.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. But now in the world of Google, that's creating a bunch of idiots that don't remember anything.
I know. I have this love-hate relationship with the internet because I have learned so much more. Because if I ever had to go to a library to learn what I've learned off of Google,
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But it's such a rabbit hole
Oh,
that 2 hours will go by and I still haven't looked up the thing I went there to look up.
oh yeah. Oh, sure. It's as you type
Dang
in
it.
a certain subject and 17 things pop up on the screen and squirrel.
Yeah, right.
And off you go.
You're exactly right.
Like you said, rabbit hole.
It's
off
terrible.
after the squirrel.
Yes.
And then you sit, and then you get to the end of that, and you go, and so why did I sit down here in the first place? Oh yeah, and you go back.
2 days
and
later, I gotta
guaranteed,
go back and redo my search.
and guaranteed you're
Oh.
going to go back and squirrel.
Yes.
You go down another path.
I have a love-hate relationship with it. I have learned so much because you can just, it is literally like a library online.
In your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In videos, you can go to YouTube, watch how to do something.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
You know what's amazing? Everything advances exponentially. Have you ever watched a show called Black Mirror?
No, I started it once. I started
The first episode turns a lot of people off.
Maybe that's what happened.
But the concept of the show, it's very much like a this could really happen kind of Twilight Zone. Every single episode is a standalone story. There's no repeat characters or anything like that. They're all standalone, just like Twilight Zone. But every single one of them, you watch it and you go, oh my God, 5 years from now, that could be real.
I'll have to go back.
That could be true. That could really happen. Oh, it's fascinating. And it's all about the exponential advancement of tech and the potential paths that it could follow. You know, things like drones having access to everything, people being able to watch you on Skype on your computer and you don't even know they're watching you. And yeah, go back and watch that. That show is fantastic.
All right, I'm going to have to put that on my docket.
Yeah. Move that higher up the list.
I think so. It's funny, I saw some Amazon that's going to start droning in prescription drugs for you.
Oh, yeah.
What could possibly go wrong with that?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Droning in drugs?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah, drop it in the driveway and the neighbor's 3-year-old picks it up.
What
you
could
know?
possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
Are they not thinking out there?
Yeah, I think even, like CBS was talking about it, and a couple of something like that. It's like,
Drugs, folks, drugs. Good
Yeah.
grief.
so,
All right.
so.
Mo, we're over 2 hours.
Are you kidding me? Holy guacamole.
Yeah, tell your husband. I guess we found something to talk about.
I guess we did, yeah.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Well, thank you, too.
Oh, my gosh, are you kidding me?
And one of these days, maybe you and I will work together on a stage at the same time in the same
Maybe.
show without it being me understudying somebody who gets sick.
Maybe.
We actually get to rehearse.
Maybe.